In September 1938, my mother's younger sister got married in Switzerland, and we went to the wedding, but went back to Düsseldorf 2 weeks before Kristallnacht. That night, my parents' neighbor, a German judge, told my parents to get into the car and keep driving, just stay away from the house. This began a 2-year ordeal moving from town to town ahead of the Nazis. We became refugees. No one wanted us. I was 2 years old. We first went to Montreux, Switzerland, a city bordering on France. My father went to the local yeshiva where a Rabbi Batchko gave my father a letter from a doctor saying that he had TB. This letter would later save his life. From Montreux, we went to Epinal, France. We stopped there because the cattle train that we were on was bombed in the front. We ran out the back and hid in houses. I remember standing under a doorway with my mother, watching the bombs, little black bombs falling from airplanes and exploding. It was a very difficult time. My parents were never well, and we were always on the move. The Germans moved into Epinal, and after many towns, we got to Chamonix. We stayed for 1 whole year hidden there. One night, the French police came knocking on the door in Chamonix, a sound that I shall always hear in my head. They came to take my parents to a labor camp. Somehow my mother managed to convince them to allow her the time to take my sister Eva and me to friends. He was a Jewish writer and she was Catholic. They did not awaken to our banging, and my mother wanted to leave in the dark, so she left us there on the doorstep. We cried all night. We were found in the morning, and these people were very kind to us. In the meantime, my mother, a lifetime warrior, had gotten the name of someone in the British Air Force who was stationed nearby. He knew the forests well, and he and his son helped other Jews find their way towards Switzerland. They escorted her for some time and then pointed her in the right direction. She continued the walk alone. My father was taken to the train to a labor camp. He showed them the letter he had received from the rabbi stating that he had TB. The Nazis were still hoping he could do hard work, and the others also, so they did not want him with the well people and put him in the last car with all the sick people. He managed to jump off the train. The knee injury he received stayed with him his whole life. He came back to Chamonix to get Eva and me. He had us dressed in layers. 3 dresses, 3 pairs of underwear, 3 pairs of socks, several sweaters. We were each given a paper bag of sugar cubes, and that was all we carried. We left on a Shabbat morning and took a train. And at the end of the train line, we were met by the same guide who took my mother to Switzerland. We walked from one farm to another through an underground railroad. When outside, sometimes we saw soldiers with big dogs, and we would have to lie very quietly on the floor. Sometimes we slept in haylofts. It was at around this time while walking that on a meadow I found my mother's scarf. We were tied to each other with a rope. We walked against the cliff. I was so scared. In retrospect, what was it like for my 30-year-old mother to go alone? What was it like for my father to take 2 young children into the wilderness unknown? On the 4th day, the guide pointed to a mountain and told us to go toward it. There were no actual roads, naturally. He could not go further. We walked and we came eventually to a village. My father told us to put a cleaner dress on top, and he called my grandfather in Zurich. We went there, and that is where we were reunited with my mother. After the war, we discovered that my father's entire family in Poland had been shot to death. When I think of how any of us might handle a similar situation, would we be able to carry this off? I wanted my own children and grandchildren to understand our experience, so in 2004, I decided to take them all to Europe to show them the route we took from Annecy to Chamonix, from Geneva to Zurich. I gave each one a little bag of sugar cubes, and we walked, and it lasted 20 or 30 minutes. And then we saw a Haagen-Dazs ice cream shop, and that was better. It was different. It was a different walk, but it was wonderful. And I think that my grandchildren will remember the seriousness of my 1941 walk and the fun we did have all together in 2004.